Hello there, and welcome to Sleepy Wisdom Channel. Tonight, we'll be resting with the gentle teachings of Buddhism, those ancient observations about suffering, peace, and the path between them, insights that emerged over 2,500 years ago, when a man sat beneath a tree and refused to move until he understood why humans suffer and how that suffering could end. People return to these teachings when life feels heavy, when the mind won't stop, when they need to remember that peace is possible even when circumstances are difficult. But behind these simple truths is a profound understanding of how the mind creates suffering, how clinging causes pain, and the quiet recognition that freedom is always available, right here, right now. These are not religious commands or beliefs you must accept. They are observations about reality that you can test for yourself. Gentle invitations to see clearly, to let go softly, and to rest in what already is. Some teachings feel immediate and practical. Others point toward mysteries that words cannot quite capture. But all of them move in one direction, toward the end of unnecessary suffering, toward a peace that does not depend on everything going right. In this video, we'll explore how suffering works, why it happens, and the path that countless people have walked toward freedom, not in some distant future, but here, in the only moment that exists. If you enjoy these gentle journeys, I invite you to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. But for now, there's nothing you need to do but relax. Let your body grow heavy against what supports you. Let your breath slow to its natural rhythm. Allow your eyes to close if they want to, or soften if they prefer to stay half open. Let your shoulders drop away from your ears. There is nowhere to go and nothing to become. Just this moment, just this breath, just this gentle exploration of ancient wisdom. Let's begin. The Buddha's first teaching after his awakening was not about bliss or enlightenment. It was about suffering. He began with what is most obvious, most immediate, most honest. Life contains suffering. This is not pessimism. It is simple observation. If you are alive, you will experience pain, loss, disappointment, and the persistent sense that something is not quite right. Understanding this is not the problem, it is the beginning of the solution. Life contains suffering. This was the Buddha's first insight, sitting beneath the Bodhi tree. Not that life is only suffering, but that suffering is woven into existence. You will experience physical pain. Your body will age, sicken, and eventually fail. You will experience emotional pain. People you love will leave, either by choice or by death. Things you build will crumble. Plans will fall apart. Even in moments of happiness, there is often an undercurrent of unease, a subtle anxiety that this too will pass. The Buddha was not being morbid. He was being honest. Recognizing that suffering exists is not giving up. It is stopping the exhausting pretense that it should not exist. This recognition itself brings relief. You are not broken because you suffer. You are not doing it wrong. You are simply alive, and this is part of what life includes. The teaching does not end here. This is only the first truth, but it begins with this gentle acknowledgement. Yes, there is suffering. It is real. It is here, and you are not alone in experiencing it. Suffering comes in many forms. The Buddha identified 3 types. There is the suffering of pain, obvious and direct, a headache, a broken bone, grief, fear, anxiety. This is the suffering everyone recognizes. Then there is the suffering of change. Even pleasant experiences carry a subtle dissatisfaction because you know they will not last. The meal ends. The vacation concludes. The moment of joy fades. There is a bitter sweetness to pleasure when you are aware of its impermanence. Finally, there is the suffering of simply existing in a conditioned world, a low-level background hum of unease, the sense that something is always slightly off, that you are always reaching for the next thing, that the present moment is never quite enough. This is the subtlest form of suffering, and often the hardest to see. But once you notice it, you realize it has been there all along, a gentle friction between what is and what you think should be. Even pleasant moments contain dukkha. Dukkha is the Pali word often translated as suffering, but it means something broader: unsatisfactoriness, a sense of incompleteness. Even when things are going well, there is often a subtle tension. The pleasure of eating contains the awareness that the meal will end. The joy of being with someone you love carries the knowledge that separation is inevitable. The satisfaction of accomplishment is shadowed by the question of what comes next. This is not about being unable to enjoy life. It is about noticing a quality that is almost always present, a faint unease, a reaching for something more, an inability to fully settle. The teaching is not that you should stop enjoying pleasant things. It is that clinging to them, trying to make them permanent, adds a layer of suffering to the natural passing of experience. The moment itself is fine. The desperate attempt to hold it creates pain. Wanting things to be different creates pain. Much of your suffering comes not from what is happening, but from your insistence that it should not be happening. You are stuck in traffic and you suffer, not because of the traffic itself, but because you believe you should not be stuck. Someone criticizes you and you suffer, not because of the words, but because you think they should have spoken differently. The weather is cold and you suffer, not because of the temperature, but because you want it to be warm. This is the gap where suffering lives, between what is and what you demand should be. Reality simply unfolds according to causes and conditions. It does not ask your permission. It does not consult your preferences. When you argue with reality, reality always wins. But the argument itself is exhausting. The peace comes not from changing what is, but from releasing the insistence that it must be different. This does not mean you become passive. It means you stop adding mental resistance to what has already occurred. Suffering is universal, not personal. Everyone experiences this. The specifics differ, but the pattern is the same. You are not uniquely cursed. You are not being singled out. You are not failing at life because you struggle. This is the human condition. Everyone you pass on the street carries some form of suffering. Everyone you admire faces challenges you do not see. Everyone is doing their best with the understanding they currently have. This recognition connects you rather than isolates you. Your pain is not a wall between you and others. It is a bridge. When you understand your own suffering, you begin to understand the suffering of all beings. Compassion becomes natural, not because you are trying to be good, but because you recognize yourself in everyone you meet. We are all in this together, trying to navigate existence without a manual, doing the best we can. Pain and suffering are not the same. Pain is inevitable. If you have a body, it will hurt sometimes. If you have a heart, it will break sometimes. This is not optional. But suffering, the Buddha taught, is what you add to pain. It is the second arrow. The first arrow is the event itself, the injury, the loss, the disappointment. The second arrow is your reaction, the story you tell about why it happened, the judgment you place on it, the way you replay it endlessly in your mind. The first arrow hurts. The second arrow compounds that hurt exponentially. You cannot always avoid the first arrow. Life will throw them, but the second arrow is optional. This is where your freedom lives, not in preventing all pain, but in not multiplying it through resistance, judgment, and story. The space between the first arrow and the second is where practice happens. It is brief, but it is real, and it makes all the difference. We suffer because we don't understand impermanence. Everything changes. This is not philosophy. It is observable fact. Your body is different than it was 10 years ago. Your thoughts are different than they were 10 minutes ago. The person you love is not the same person you met years ago. Nothing stays. Everything flows. Yet, you live as if things should be permanent. You expect relationships to remain unchanged. You expect your body to stay young. You expect circumstances to stabilize. This misunderstanding creates constant friction. You are trying to hold water in your hands. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it drains. If you understood that everything is already flowing, you would hold more lightly. You would appreciate what is here now, instead of demanding it stay forever. Impermanence is not the problem. Your expectation of permanence is the problem. When you align your understanding with reality, suffering decreases. Not because reality changed, but because you stopped fighting it. Ignorance is the root. Not ignorance in the sense of lacking information, but ignorance in the sense of not seeing clearly. You do not see impermanence, so you cling. You do not see the constructed nature of self, so you defend it desperately. You do not understand cause and effect, so you blame and resent. This ignorance is not your fault. It is the default human condition. We are born into confusion. We inherit ways of thinking that do not match reality. But ignorance can be addressed, not through belief, but through clear seeing. The Buddha's path is essentially about learning to see accurately, to see things as they actually are, not as you wish they were or fear they might be. This seeing is gentle. It does not require violence toward yourself. It simply requires paying attention, looking closely, questioning assumptions, and slowly the fog lifts, not all at once, but gradually. And in that clearing, there is peace. Attachment binds us. You cling to pleasant experiences, wanting them to continue forever. You cling to people, trying to hold them in place. You cling to ideas about who you are and how the world should work. This clinging creates tension. it is like holding your fist closed all day. Eventually, your hand cramps. Eventually, the holding itself becomes painful. And what are you holding anyway? Things that were never solid to begin with. Things that are already leaving. Even attachment to good things causes suffering. Attachment is not the same as love or appreciation. You can love deeply without clinging. You can appreciate fully without grasping. Attachment is the fear-based need to control, to make permanent, to possess. It is exhausting. The relief comes not from getting rid of what you love, but from releasing the tight grip. Opening your hand. Letting things rest lightly in your palm. Still there, still valued, but no longer held so tightly that your hand aches. Aversion is also attachment. This is less obvious, but equally true. Pushing something away is another form of holding on to it. When you hate something, you are bound to it as surely as if you loved it. When you fight what is here, you give it power over you. Aversion and attraction are two sides of the same coin. Both keep you hooked. Both prevent freedom. The middle way is neither clinging nor pushing away. It is allowing. Letting experience be what it is without needing to control it. This does not mean you become passive or indifferent. It means you stop adding resistance to what is already occurring. You can still have preferences. You can still work toward change, but you do it from clarity rather than from reactivity, from choice rather than from compulsion. Aversion feels powerful, but it is actually a form of bondage. True freedom includes the difficult and the unpleasant without being controlled by them. We create stories that cause suffering. Something happens, an event, neutral in itself, but immediately the mind creates a story. Why it happened, what it means, what it says about you, what will happen next. These stories feel like truth, but they are interpretations. Often, they are interpretations designed to protect the ego or explain away uncertainty. And often, they create more suffering than the original event. Someone does not respond to your message. The event is simple. The story you create might be elaborate. They are angry. They do not care. You did something wrong. They are avoiding you. Each story generates emotion, and you suffer not from the unreturned message, but from the story you have wrapped around it. The freedom is in recognizing story as story, not necessarily untrue, but not necessarily true either. Just one possible interpretation among many. When you hold stories lightly, they lose their power to create suffering. Comparing creates suffering. You measure yourself against others and find yourself lacking or superior. Either way, you have created separation. Either way, you have entered a game that has no winners. Someone will always have more. Someone will always have less. The measuring never ends. The dissatisfaction never resolves. Because the problem is not where you stand on the ladder. The problem is believing the ladder is real. You also compare yourself to ideals, to who you think you should be, to past versions of yourself, to imagined future versions. This constant measuring is violent. It denies the reality of who you actually are right now. The Buddha taught that you are already complete, not perfect, not finished, but complete, lacking nothing essential. When you stop comparing, you can finally see yourself clearly. Not better or worse than others, just here, just this, and that is enough. The ego's need to be right causes pain. How much energy do you spend defending positions, proving points, winning arguments? The ego treats disagreement as threat. It needs to be right because it thinks being wrong means annihilation. But this need creates constant conflict with others, with reality, even with yourself. You argue with what is obvious because admitting error feels like death. But it is not death. It is just growth. It is learning. The ability to say, "I was wrong" or "I don't know" is freedom, not weakness. It releases you from the exhausting task of defending every position you have ever taken. The Buddha encouraged questioning everything, even his own teachings. Do not believe something because an authority said it. Test it. See if it is true in your experience. This openness is the opposite of ego, and it brings tremendous peace. Wanting control creates suffering. You want to control outcomes, other people's behavior, your own thoughts and emotions, the future, the past, how you are perceived, what happens next. This desire for control is understandable. It feels like it would bring safety, but it is impossible. You do not control most of what happens. You never did. The illusion of control creates anxiety because you are constantly failing at an impossible task. The peace comes from recognizing what you actually influence: your effort, your response, your intention. That is a much smaller circle than you thought, but it is enough. When you release responsibility for what was never yours to control, a weight lifts. You are still engaged, still acting, still caring, but from a place of clarity rather than desperate grasping. You do what you can and release the rest, not because you do not care, but because you finally understand what is actually yours to hold. Suffering points to its own solution. This is perhaps the most hopeful aspect of the Buddha's teaching. Suffering is not punishment. It is information. It is a signal that something is misaligned, that you are clinging where you could release, that you are resisting where you could accept, that you are believing thoughts that are not true. Suffering itself shows you where to look, what needs attention, what is ready to be released. This reframes everything. Difficulty is not the enemy. It is the teacher. Pain is not something to avoid at all costs. It is something to investigate with curiosity. What is this showing me? Where am I holding too tightly? What am I not seeing clearly? These questions transform suffering from something that happens to you into something that instructs you. The same difficulty that once seemed meaningless becomes the very thing that wakes you up. Not all suffering is bad. This might sound strange, but the Buddha recognized that some suffering refines us. The difficulty of practice itself is a form of suffering. The discomfort of sitting still, the frustration of a wandering mind, the pain of seeing yourself clearly. But this suffering is different. It is the suffering that leads out of suffering, like the difficulty of exercise that makes you stronger, like the discomfort of learning that makes you wiser. Some people who have never struggled remain shallow. Some people who have suffered deeply become cruel. But some people meet difficulty and are transformed by it. They become more compassionate because they know pain. They become wiser because they have been humbled. They become freer because they have released what could not be held. Suffering itself is not the gift, but what you do with suffering can be. How you meet it, how you learn from it, how you let it open your heart instead of closing it. You are not your suffering. This is crucial. You contain suffering, but you are not contained by it. There is awareness that observes pain without being identical to it. There is a space around difficulty that is not touched by it. This is not about dissociating or denying what hurts. It is about recognizing that you are larger than any single experience. The sky is not the weather, the ocean is not the waves, and you are not the temporary conditions passing through you. This recognition creates breathing room. Even in the midst of intense difficulty, there is something that witnesses it, something stable, something that has been here all along and will remain after this particular pain passes. You are not broken. You are not damaged. You are awareness itself, temporarily experiencing difficulty. This does not make the difficulty disappear, but it changes your relationship to it. You are the space in which suffering occurs, not the suffering itself. Acknowledging suffering is the first step. Before you can work with pain, you must admit it is here. This sounds obvious, but most people spend enormous energy denying, minimizing, or distracting from suffering. You tell yourself it is not that bad. You compare it to others and decide you do not have the right to struggle. You numb it with substances, activities, or constant stimulation. But what is not acknowledged cannot be addressed. The Buddha taught that simply naming suffering accurately is the beginning of freedom. This is suffering, not judging it, not panicking about it, not making it mean something terrible about you, just seeing it clearly. This is pain. This is grief. This is anxiety. This is loneliness. The clarity itself changes something. The truth does not overwhelm when it is met directly. It is the avoidance that makes suffering grow in the dark. Bring it into light. Name it. And already you have taken the first step toward its release. Once you understand that suffering exists and see how it operates, the question becomes, what now? The Buddha did not stop at diagnosis. He offered treatment. Not just a description of the problem, but a path toward solution. This path is not theoretical. It is practical. It requires no special beliefs, no religious conversion, no faith in anything except your own capacity to see clearly and choose wisely. The Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path are invitations to test in your own life. There is a cause of suffering. This is the second noble truth. Suffering is not random. It is not punishment from the universe. It arises from specific causes, and those causes are understandable. The primary cause is craving, tanha in Pali, a thirsty grasping, an insatiable wanting, not desire itself, but the clinging quality of desire, the belief that you need something external to be okay. Understanding this is empowering. If suffering had no cause, you would be helpless. But if it arises from causes you can see and work with, then change is possible. Suffering can end. This is the third noble truth, and it is perhaps the most hopeful teaching in all of Buddhism. Suffering is not your permanent condition. It can cease. The Buddha called this nirvana. not a place you go after death, but a way of being available right now. The cessation of craving, the end of the frantic seeking, the peace that comes when you stop running. This is not about becoming emotionless. It is about being fully present without being driven by compulsion. There is a path, the fourth noble truth. This is the practical heart of Buddhism. The Buddha laid out specific steps. The eightfold path, not 8 commandments, but 8 areas of practice that support each other, like 8 spokes in a wheel. This path is called the middle way because it avoids extremes, not harsh asceticism, not careless indulgence, a balanced, sustainable approach to liberation. Right understanding comes first. This means seeing clearly the way things actually are, understanding impermanence, suffering, and non-self, not as beliefs, but as direct observations. This understanding is the foundation of the entire path. But it is not intellectual understanding. It is experiential. You can read about impermanence in books, but until you watch your own thoughts arise and pass, you have not truly understood. Right understanding comes from paying attention to your actual experience. Right intention follows understanding. Once you see how suffering arises, intention naturally shifts. You intend toward non-harm. You intend toward letting go. You intend toward compassion. Intention is the direction you set, even when you do not execute perfectly. This is not about having pure thoughts all the time. It is about noticing where your intentions actually lie and gently redirecting when they move toward harm. Right speech reduces suffering. Words are powerful. They can heal or harm. Right speech means speaking truth, but speaking it kindly. Not lying, not gossiping, not using language to manipulate or wound. Most people underestimate how much suffering they create through careless speech. Right speech requires paying attention, pausing before speaking, asking if what you are about to say is true, necessary, and kind. Right action means acting with care. The Buddha identified specific actions that tend to cause harm: killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, intoxication that leads to heedlessness. These are not arbitrary rules. They are observations about what creates suffering. You practice them not to be good, but to reduce suffering. Right action does not demand perfection. It asks for intention and attention. Right livelihood supports practice. How you make your living matters. If your work requires you to harm others, to lie, to exploit, it becomes much harder to develop inner peace. Right livelihood means finding work that does not require you to violate your values. This is not always easy, but it is worth considering. What does your work ask of you? Does it align with who you want to be? Right effort is balanced effort. Not too tight, not too loose. The Buddha used the analogy of tuning a string instrument. If the string is too tight, it breaks. If too loose, it will not play. Right effort means finding the middle way between pushing too hard and giving up. It means persistent but gentle practice. Progress that is sustainable over a lifetime, rather than dramatic but brief. Right mindfulness is gentle attention. Mindfulness means present moment awareness, knowing what is happening while it is happening, not judging it, just noticing. When you are angry, knowing This is anger, simple, direct awareness of immediate experience. Mindfulness is not concentration. It is more like a gentle, spacious noticing. When your mind wanders, which it will constantly, you gently return. This coming back is the practice. Right concentration is deep rest. Concentration means the ability to gather and stabilize attention, not forced focus, but natural absorption. When the mind settles on a single object like the breath and stays there with ease, deep concentration brings calm, clarity, and insight. The mind that is scattered cannot see clearly, but when attention stabilizes, you can observe experience with precision. The path is not linear. You do not master right understanding, then move on to right intention. It is more like a spiral. You return to the same areas again and again, but each time a little deeper. The path does not have a finish line. It has endless deepening. You do not graduate from being human. You simply become more skilled at working with the challenges that being human includes. Each step supports the others. This is the beauty of the Eightfold Path. Ethics makes meditation easier because you are not carrying guilt and deception. Meditation makes ethics easier because you see more clearly how actions affect you and others. Everything works together. You do not have to figure out which area to work on first. Just start somewhere. One step naturally leads to the next. Small steps matter most. The path is not about dramatic breakthroughs. It is about small, consistent choices. Speaking kindly in one conversation, pausing before reacting in one moment, returning attention to breath once. These tiny actions seem insignificant, but they accumulate. They become patterns. Patterns become habits. Habits become character. And slowly, you change. The path is the goal. This teaching appears over and over in Buddhism. You think you are walking a path toward somewhere else, but the Buddha taught that the walking itself is already it. The practice is already peace. You are not becoming something you are not. You are recognizing what you already are underneath all the confusion. Peace is available now, in the trying, in the showing up. You don't walk alone. The Buddha placed great emphasis on Sangha, spiritual community. Others who are practicing, who understand the difficulty, who can support and be supported. You are not meant to figure this out in isolation. The path is easier when walked with others. You belong to a lineage of people who have walked this path before, and those walking it now. The Buddha was human. This is important to remember. He was not a god, not supernatural, not perfect from birth. He was a human who struggled, who questioned, who tried extreme practices and found them lacking. His awakening is proof of what is possible for humans. What he discovered, you can discover. What he practiced, you can practice. You have Buddha nature. This is one of Buddhism's most radical teachings. You are not broken. You are not fundamentally flawed. Deep beneath all the confusion, there is something pure and untouched. Buddha nature. The capacity for awakening. It is not something you gain through practice. It is something you uncover, like a jewel covered in mud. You are already whole, already complete, already Buddha. Practice is remembering, not achieving. This completely reframes the path. You are not trying to earn something or become someone new. You are trying to see clearly what has always been here. to remember your true nature, to come home to yourself. This removes the pressure of striving and replaces it with the gentleness of recognition. Compassion for yourself is essential. The Buddha did not teach self-punishment or harsh judgment. He taught metta, loving kindness, beginning with yourself. You cannot walk this path through violence toward yourself. Every time you judge yourself harshly, you create more suffering. Self-compassion is not indulgence. It is treating yourself with the same kindness you would offer a dear friend. Forgiveness is part of the path. You will harm others, even unintentionally. You will carry guilt and shame. The Buddha taught that holding resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Forgiveness does not mean what you did was okay. It means you release the ongoing suffering of carrying it. You learn from the mistake. You repair what you can. You commit to doing better. And then you let it go. Generosity opens the heart. One of the Buddha's core teachings is dana, generosity, giving without expectation of return. Generosity is the antidote to the contracted, fearful, grasping mind. When you give freely, you prove to yourself that you have enough, that you are enough. Even small acts of generosity matter. Letting someone go first, listening fully, offering help without being asked. Patience is deep practice. The Buddha spent 6 years seeking before his awakening. Patience with the process, patience with yourself, patience with others. Nothing happens on your schedule. Growth has its own timing. Impatience is another form of craving, wanting results now. But the difficult parts are the practice. The waiting is the practice. Patience is not passive. It is actively trusting. Joy is part of the path. Buddhism is sometimes perceived as grim or world-denying, but the Buddha taught mudita, appreciative joy, the ability to be happy for others' happiness. The path is not about grinding yourself down. It is about discovering the lightness that comes from releasing unnecessary burdens. There is joy in seeing clearly, joy in acting with integrity. Freedom is not heavy. It is the lightest thing there is. Understanding the teachings is one thing. Living them is another. The Buddha was relentlessly practical. He did not offer philosophy for its own sake. Every teaching pointed toward direct application in daily life. The path is not something you practice in formal meditation and then abandon the rest of the day. It is woven into everything. How you wake up, how you move through your hours, how you relate to others, how you meet difficulty. These everyday moments are where freedom is actually found. Morning can be a fresh start. Each day you wake is a new beginning. Yesterday's failures do not have to determine today. You open your eyes to a world that is brand new, even if it looks the same. The Buddha taught that each moment is fresh. Nothing carries over except what you insist on carrying. You can wake with intention, with gentleness toward yourself. Morning is a gift, a reset button, another chance. Mindfulness in daily activities. The Buddha taught that any activity can become meditation. Walking, eating, washing, cleaning. These are not interruptions to practice. They are practice. When you walk, you know you are walking. You feel your feet touching ground. You are not thinking about walking, you are walking. This complete presence transforms the ordinary into the sacred. The breath as anchor. In every Buddhist tradition, breath is central. Not because breath is special, but because it is always available. As long as you are alive, you are breathing, and breath happens now. When your mind wanders into past or future, breath brings you back. You do not have to control breath. Just notice breathing happening. Breath is always here, always now, always inviting you back home, working with difficult emotions. The Buddha did not teach that you should not feel difficult emotions. He taught how to work with them skillfully. Rain. Recognize what is present. Allow it to be here without fighting it. Investigate it with curiosity and kindness. Non-identify with it, recognizing you are not the emotion itself. These 4 steps transform your relationship with difficulty. Anger can be held gently. Anger gets a bad reputation in spiritual circles, but the Buddha taught that anger itself is not the problem. It is what you do with anger. The practice is not suppressing anger, but not being possessed by it. You feel the heat, notice the energy, but you do not hand over the steering wheel. You watch the fire without throwing gasoline on it. Fear reveals what matters. Fear is another emotion often judged as weakness, but the Buddha saw fear as information. What you fear points to what you value. Fear also reveals misunderstanding. Most fear lives in imagination. The feared event is not here now. Now is usually bearable. Fear is almost always about a story you are telling about the future. Grief is love with nowhere to go. When you lose someone or something you love, grief is natural. The Buddha did not teach that you should not grieve. Grief is not a failure of detachment. It is evidence of love. Honoring loss means letting grief be present without rushing it. The tears are testimony. They say this person mattered, and that is okay. Joy doesn't need reason. One of the beautiful aspects of Buddhist practice is discovering that happiness does not require everything to go right. There is a baseline contentment available when you stop arguing with reality. This is what the Buddha called mudita, appreciative joy. The ability to be happy without needing a reason. The joy of being itself. Boredom is a teacher. In a culture of constant stimulation, boredom feels intolerable. But the Buddha would say boredom is just the mind's discomfort with stillness. Boredom reveals craving, the restless need for more. When you can sit with boredom without immediately reaching for stimulation, something shifts. Underneath, you find a different quality. Peace, stillness, loneliness, and solitude. These are not the same thing. Loneliness is the painful feeling that you are isolated. Solitude is the choice to be alone, the capacity to be your own good company. The Buddha spent significant time alone. Being alone without feeling alone requires recognizing that you are already complete. You can be with yourself. Enjoy your own company. Relationships as practice. Every relationship is an opportunity to practice patience, kindness, honesty, forgiveness. The Buddha taught that all beings are your teachers, but especially the people close to you. They see you most clearly. They trigger your patterns. They mirror back your own reactions. Even difficult relationships teach you something. Difficult people are teachers. The people who trigger you the most are often your greatest teachers. When someone's behavior bothers you intensely, it is worth asking, what in me is reacting so strongly? Difficult people test your practice. They show you whether your peace depends on others being easy or whether it comes from within. Listening is a gift. Most people do not listen. They wait for their turn to talk. The Buddha taught deep listening as a form of generosity. When you truly listen, you offer your full presence. You put aside your agenda. This kind of listening is rare and precious. People feel it when they are truly heard. Speech can heal or harm. The Buddha placed great emphasis on right speech. Words are powerful tools. They can wound deeply or heal profoundly. Before speaking, ask 3 questions. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? If it fails any of these, silence might be better. Once words leave your mouth, you cannot take them back. Work as spiritual practice. The Buddha taught right livelihood, but he also taught that all work can be practice. The question is not what you do, but how you do it. Can you bring presence to your work? Can you see it as service rather than burden? When work becomes practice, it transforms. Your job might not be your calling, but it can still be your practice. Rest is not laziness. In a culture that values constant productivity, rest feels like failure. But the Buddha taught that rest is essential. He spoke of the middle way between striving and giving up. You need rest to sustain practice. Burning yourself out is not skillful. Permission to rest is permission to be human. Your body needs sleep. Your mind needs quiet. Nature as teacher. The Buddha found awakening under a tree. He taught often in forests and gardens. Nature has lessons that words cannot convey. Trees demonstrate patience. Water demonstrates flow. Mountains demonstrate stability. When you spend time in nature, you remember you are part of something larger. You are nature. Returning to nature is returning home. Animals live in now. Watch a dog. It is completely present. When eating, it eats. When playing, it plays. There is no layer of thought separating the animal from its experience. No story about whether this moment is good enough. Animals remind us of a simpler way. Full engagement with what is here. No resistance. Just this moment, fully met. Death, awareness, enriches life. The Buddha meditated on death regularly. Not to be morbid, but to stay awake. When you truly understand that death is coming, that this life is finite, everything sharpens. Colors are brighter. Time becomes precious. You stop postponing. Death is not the enemy. It is the teacher that reminds you to live. Impermanence is freedom. Everything changes. This can feel threatening or liberating. When you truly understand impermanence, you relax your grip. You stop demanding that things last forever. Impermanence also means that difficult times will pass. This too will change. This too will pass. Impermanence is not the problem. It is the solution to the problem of clinging. This body is temporary. The Buddha taught contemplation of the body, not to hate it, but to see it clearly. This body is aging. It will sicken. It will die. This is simply how bodies work. They are made of elements borrowed from earth. The body is a temporary vessel. You inhabit it, care for it, but you are not ultimately identical to it. Thoughts are not facts. One of the most liberating insights is recognizing that thoughts are just mental events. They arise, they pass. They are not necessarily true. They are not you. Most people believe every thought that appears, but thoughts are more like weather. They blow through. Some are accurate, some are not. When you can watch thoughts without immediately believing them, everything changes. The comparing mind. Notice how often your mind compares. Your body to other bodies. Your achievements to others' achievements. This constant measuring is exhausting. The Buddha taught that each being walks their own path. Comparison is meaningless. When you catch yourself comparing, just notice. Comparing mind is here. Each time you notice and release comparison, you break the pattern. Perfectionism is suffering. The belief that you must do everything perfectly is another form of violence. It denies your humanity. The Buddha taught that perfection is not the goal. The goal is wisdom, compassion, and freedom. Good enough is enough. This is not laziness or low standards. It is realistic standards. When you release the demand for perfection, you can actually enjoy practice. Judging others judges yourself. The Buddha taught that judgment you place on others reveals your own fears and patterns. What you criticize in others is often what you fear in yourself. This does not mean you never assess behavior or set boundaries. It means you notice when assessment becomes harsh judgment. Recognizing your shared humanity softens judgment. Non-doing is also practice. The Buddha taught that sitting meditation is essential, but he also taught that sometimes the practice is simply being, not doing anything, not trying to accomplish anything, just sitting, just being. This feels wrong in a culture that values constant productivity. But non-doing has its own value. You can exist without purpose sometimes. Simplicity brings clarity. The more you have, the more you must maintain. Simplicity is not about having nothing. It is about having what is enough. The Buddha lived with almost nothing. Less distraction means more presence. Less clutter means more clarity. Simplicity is sophisticated. It is the result of knowing what matters. Contentment is not complacency. The Buddha taught santuti, contentment, but contentment is often confused with giving up. They are different. Complacency means you stop trying. Contentment means you are at peace with what is, while still engaged with the possibility of change. You can be content with your life and still work to improve it. The difference is in the energy. Gratitude transforms. One of the simplest and most powerful practices is gratitude. Not forced positivity, but genuinely noticing what is already here. The Buddha taught that seeing what you have been given shifts perception. When you train attention toward gratitude, you do not become blind to problems. You become balanced. Gratitude is the antidote to the mind's tendency to focus only on what is wrong. You are already enough. This might be the most radical Buddhist teaching. You do not need to earn your worth. You do not need to prove yourself. You are already complete, already Buddha, already enough. This is not a belief to adopt. It is a recognition to uncover. You are not broken. practice does not make you enough. It reveals that you were enough all along. Now, we move into deeper water, into teachings that do not make immediate sense, that point toward truth beyond words. The Buddha spoke of ultimate reality, of emptiness, of the constructed nature of self. These are not beliefs to accept, but invitations to investigate. They can sound abstract or philosophical, but they are actually the most practical teachings of all. They cut through illusion at its root. Let your mind soften as we enter paradox. Let understanding come not through thinking, but through the space between thoughts. There is no solid self. Anatta, non-self, is one of Buddhism's most challenging teachings. You feel like a solid, continuous self, a person with a name, a history, an identity that persists through time. But the Buddha taught that when you look closely, you cannot find this self. What you find instead is a process, a collection of changing elements that you call me, but that has no fixed essence. The body changes constantly. Thoughts arise and pass. Emotions come and go. Where in all of that is the permanent self? This is not nihilism. The Buddha is not saying you do not exist at all. He is saying you do not exist in the way you think you do. You are not a thing. You are a happening, a process unfolding. A verb, not a noun. This realization is liberating because it means you are not fixed, not trapped, not defined by past actions or current conditions. You are always becoming, always fluid. The self you defend so desperately is just a story, a useful fiction for navigating the world, but not ultimate truth. The self is a useful fiction. You need to function in the world. You need to sign your name, make agreements, take responsibility. For these purposes, self is useful. But confusing conventional truth with ultimate truth creates suffering. You think you are protecting something real when you defend your ego, but what you are protecting is just a construct, a collection of memories, preferences, identities, and stories that you have assembled and called me. When you see self as convention rather than ultimate reality, you hold it more lightly. You can play the role without being imprisoned by it. You can have an identity without being defined by it. You can function in the world without mistaking the functional self for your deepest truth. Both are true. Conventionally, there is a self. Ultimately, there is only process. Understanding both lets you live skillfully without suffering unnecessarily. You are not your thoughts. Awareness notices thoughts. If you were identical to your thoughts, who would be noticing them? There is the thought, and there is the knowing of the thought. These are not the same. You are closer to the knowing than the thought. You are awareness itself, temporarily watching mental activity. Thoughts appear in you, but they are not you. This is obvious once you see it, but most people never look closely enough to notice. When you realize you are not your thoughts, they lose their grip. A thought can say, "I am worthless," and instead of collapsing into that statement, you can observe there is a thought saying, "I am worthless." The thought is still there, but you are not fused with it. You have space around it. This space is freedom, not freedom from thoughts, but freedom from being controlled by them. Thoughts will continue to arise. That is what minds do, but they no longer define you. You are not your emotions. Emotions are temporary weather patterns moving through awareness. Anger arises. It peaks. It passes. Sadness comes. It stays for a while. It dissolves. Joy appears. It brightens everything. It fades. You witness all of this. You experience all of this, but you are not any of it. You are the space in which emotions occur, the sky that contains all weather without being changed by it. This does not mean you become cold or disconnected. You feel everything fully, but you are not overwhelmed by it because you know it will pass. You have watched emotions come and go thousands of times. You know their nature, temporary, changing, not self. This knowing does not prevent feeling. It prevents being possessed by feeling. You can be sad without becoming sadness. You can be afraid without becoming fear. There is you, and there is what you are experiencing. They are not identical. You are not your body. The body is something you inhabit, not something you are. It changes constantly. The cells that compose it are replaced regularly. The body you had as a child is not the body you have now. Which body is you? Neither. Both. The body is a process, a collection of elements temporarily organized, following patterns, eventually dispersing. You care for the body. You live through the body, but you are not reducible to it. When the body hurts, you feel that hurt. But there is something that knows the hurt, something aware of sensation. That awareness is closer to what you are than the sensations themselves. The body is your temporary vessel. When it fails, as it eventually will, awareness continues until it does not. And even that ending is just another change, another transition. The Buddha taught that clinging to the body as self creates suffering. Seeing it clearly as temporary, as not self, brings peace. Then what are you? This is the great question. If you are not your thoughts, not your emotions, not your body, then what? The Buddha would say, investigate for yourself. Look closely. Where is this self you believe in? When you search, you find processes, not a thing. You find changing conditions, not a solid entity. And underneath all of that, there is awareness. Empty, clear, luminous awareness that has no edges, no center, no location. Some call this Buddha nature. Some call it consciousness. Some say it is nothing that can be named. All words fail here. What you are is mystery. What you are is the knowing itself. The light that allows everything to be seen but cannot itself be seen as an object. You are not a thing in the world. You are the space in which the world appears. This is not something you can think your way into. It is something you recognize when thought finally quiets. Emptiness is not nothingness. Shunyata, emptiness, is one of Buddhism's most profound and most misunderstood teachings. It does not mean that nothing exists. It means that nothing exists independently, separately, with its own inherent essence. Everything is empty of inherent existence. Everything is interdependent, arising from causes and conditions, sustained by causes and conditions, ceasing when causes and conditions change. A flower is not truly a flower in itself. It is sunlight, rain, soil, seed, gardener's care, time. Without any of these, there is no flower. The flower is empty of flowerness. It is a temporary gathering of conditions that we label flower. This applies to everything. You, your thoughts, your problems, all empty of inherent existence, all interdependent. This is not nihilism. It is profound relationality. Nothing stands alone. Everything is part of everything else. And that changes everything. Everything is interdependent. Thich Nhat Hanh used the term interbeing. You cannot be by yourself. You are. You exist only in relationship to everything else. You need air, which comes from trees. Trees need soil, which comes from decomposition. Decomposition needs organisms, which need food, which needs sun, which needs cosmos. Everything is connected to everything. You are not separate from the world. You are world, looking at itself. This recognition dissolves isolation. You are not alone, because there is no truly separate you. Your boundaries are permeable, conceptual, useful for functioning, but not ultimately real. When you breathe, the world enters you. When you exhale, you enter the world. There is constant exchange, constant interconnection. Understanding this deeply changes how you relate to everything. Harming others is harming yourself. Caring for the world is caring for yourself, because there is no clear line where you end and other begins. The flower contains the cloud. Thich Nhat Hanh's teaching. When you look at a flower, you see cloud, because without rain, there is no flower. The cloud is in the flower. The sunshine is in the flower. The soil is in the flower. Everything that contributed to this flower is present in it, and when the flower wilts, it becomes soil, which becomes food for other plants, which become part of other beings. Nothing is lost. Everything transforms. You are the same. You contain your parents, your ancestors, your food, your teachers, your experiences. You are not a separate unit. You are a collection of everything that has touched you, and you will become part of everything you touch. This is not metaphor, it is literal. The boundaries between things are conceptual conveniences. In reality, everything interpenetrates. The flower contains the cloud. You contain the universe. The universe contains you. These are not separate statements. This moment contains all time. Past, present, and future are not separate. They exist together in this moment. The past is alive as memory, as the causes that created this present. The future is alive as seeds, as potential, as the consequences being planted now. Everything is here. When you eat an apple, you eat the tree it came from, the orchard, the season, the hands that picked it, the history of apple cultivation, the seeds of future trees. All time is present in this single bite. This teaching collapses the anxiety about time. You are not running out of time, because time is not linear in the way you think. Now is eternal. It is the only time there ever is. Past and future are thoughts occurring now. You cannot step outside now. You never have. This eternal present is not monotonous. It is infinite. It contains everything. And resting in it means you stop the frantic chase toward a future that never arrives, and the desperate escape from a past that is already gone. Form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. This line from the Heart Sutra is perhaps Buddhism's most famous paradox. Form means all the stuff of existence: bodies, trees, thoughts, stars. Emptiness means the lack of inherent existence. These are not two different things. Form is empty. There is no form that exists independently. Emptiness is form. Emptiness is not blank nothingness. It takes form as everything. They are one reality, seen from two perspectives. When you see form, see its emptiness. See that it is interdependent, changing, lacking solid essence. When you understand emptiness, see that it manifests as form, that it is not nihilistic absence but creative potential. Everything is both empty and full, both groundless and complete. This paradox cannot be resolved intellectually. It can only be lived, held lightly, experienced directly, neither existence nor non-existence. The Buddha refused to say whether things exist or do not exist. Both statements miss the truth. Things do not exist in the solid, independent way we usually think, but they do not exist either. You are not nothing. You are something. But that something is not what you thought it was. This is the middle way applied to ontology, to questions of being. Most philosophy gets stuck in either or. Either things exist or they do not. Either self is real or it is not. The Buddha taught both and neither nor. This frustrates the rational mind, which wants clear categories. But reality is not categorical. It is fluid, paradoxical, beyond the reach of concepts. When you can hold this unknowing, this mystery, without needing to resolve it into clear positions, you touch something deeper than philosophy can reach. Silence speaks loudest. The Buddha sometimes answered questions with silence, not because he did not know, but because words would mislead. Some truths cannot be spoken. They can only be pointed toward. And sometimes the pointing is clearer in silence than in words. When asked about what happens after death, about the nature of the cosmos, about metaphysical questions that do not lead to the end of suffering, the Buddha often remained silent. This teaches that not everything can be explained. Not everything should be explained. Some mysteries are better left mysterious. Some questions are better left unanswered. The mind wants to understand everything, to have it all mapped and categorized. But understanding can be a trap. Sometimes not knowing is deeper wisdom than knowing. Sometimes silence contains more truth than the most eloquent teaching. The finger pointing at the moon. The Buddha said his teachings are like a finger pointing at the moon. Do not mistake the finger for the moon. Do not worship the finger. Use it to find the moon. Then you can forget the finger. The teachings are tools, not truth itself. They point toward truth. They guide you toward direct experience. But direct experience is the goal, not the teachings. This means you eventually have to let go of the teachings themselves. You cannot cling to Buddhism and be free. You cannot hold on to any concept, even good concepts, even true concepts, and experience liberation. The teachings are a raft that carries you across the river. Once you reach the far shore, you leave the raft behind. You do not carry it on your back. The teaching that liberates is the teaching that makes itself unnecessary. All teachings are skillful means. Upaya, skillful means. The Buddha adapted his teaching to his audience. To beginners, he taught one way. To advanced practitioners, another way. To intellectuals, he emphasized wisdom. To devotional types, he emphasized faith. There is no one teaching that works for everyone. Different medicines for different ailments. What helps one person might confuse another. This means you do not have to believe all Buddhist teachings. Take what helps. Leave what does not. Test everything in your own experience. The Buddha explicitly said not to believe something just because he said it. This is remarkably open-minded for a religious teacher. It shows that Buddhism is not about belief. It is about investigation, practice, and direct knowing. The teachings are offerings, not requirements. Use what serves your liberation, and release the rest. Buddha's silence on metaphysics. People asked the Buddha, "Is the universe eternal or not? Is it finite or infinite? What happens after death? Does the self exist after death?" The Buddha refused to answer. He told the parable of the man shot with a poison arrow. The man wants to know who shot him, what type of wood the arrow is made from, what kind of poison was used. But while he is asking these questions, he is dying. The urgent thing is to remove the arrow. Metaphysical questions are like this. Interesting, but not urgent. What is urgent is ending suffering. Speculating about the nature of reality does not end suffering. Practicing does. The Buddha was radically practical. He taught what works, what leads to liberation. Everything else is distraction. This is not anti-intellectual. It is prioritizing. First, remove the arrow. Then, if you want, you can investigate its origin, but maybe by then you will not care. Maybe you will be too busy living freely to worry about abstract questions. If you meet the Buddha, kill the Buddha. This Zen teaching shocks people, but it is profound. It means do not cling even to the Buddha. Do not make an authority out of him. Do not worship him. Do not think his words are the final truth. Even the Buddha must be released. Even the most helpful teaching eventually becomes a limitation if you cling to it. This is radical non-attachment applied to the path itself. Liberation means freedom from everything, including freedom from Buddhism. You are not trying to become a Buddhist. You are trying to become free. If Buddhist teachings help, use them. If they become obstacles, release them. The ultimate freedom is not needing anything, not even teachings, not even teachers. You find your own way. You trust your own direct knowing. The Buddha is not outside you. Buddha nature is your nature. When you meet yourself fully, you have met the Buddha, and then you can let even that go. No coming, no going. Thich Nhat Hanh's epitaph and his deepest teaching. Nothing is born. Nothing dies. These are concepts we project onto reality. What we call birth is just conditions coming together. What we call death is just conditions coming apart. But the elements do not come from nothing and do not go to nothing. They transform constantly. Birth and death are changes in form, not ultimate beginnings or endings. When you understand this deeply, death loses its terror. Not because you will not die, but because you see that you, in the solid, separate sense, never existed to begin with. What is here now will change form, but nothing is lost. Energy transforms, matter transforms. Even awareness, whatever it is, moves on somehow. You cannot step outside existence. Where would you go? There is only existence, only transformation. No coming, no going, only continuation in new forms. The deathless is here now. Nirvana is often thought of as something you reach after death or after years of practice. But the Buddha taught that the deathless is available now, right here. It is the part of you that does not die, the unborn, undying awareness. It has no beginning and no end because it is not in time. It is the timeless witnessing whatever is in time. This is not mystical fantasy. It is direct experience available to anyone who looks closely. There is something that knows experience, but is not experience itself. Something that was here before your thoughts started, and will be here after they stop. Call it awareness, consciousness, Buddha nature, the deathless. It is here now. It has always been here. And recognizing it, even briefly, changes everything. You are not heading toward something. You are already it. You always were. Samsara and nirvana are one. Samsara is the cycle of suffering, the realm of confusion and grasping. Nirvana is freedom, peace, liberation. Most people think these are two different places, that you escape samsara and arrive at nirvana. But the deeper teaching is that they are the same reality seen differently. Samsara is confusion about what is. Nirvana is clarity about what is. Same reality, different relationship to it. You do not go anywhere to be free. You simply see clearly where you already are. When you stop clinging, samsara is nirvana. When you see emptiness, suffering ends. Same world, same circumstances. But everything is different because you are different. Liberation is not a place, it is a perspective. And that perspective is available here, now, in the midst of whatever you are experiencing. The three marks of existence: impermanence, suffering, and non-self. These are the three characteristics that mark all conditioned existence. Everything changes. Everything contains suffering. Everything is empty of inherent self. These are not beliefs. They are observable facts. The Buddha said, "Look for yourself. Can you find anything that does not change? Can you find anything that brings lasting satisfaction? Can you find anything that has inherent, independent existence?" If you look honestly, the answer is no. Seeing these three marks clearly changes everything. When you see impermanence, you stop clinging. When you see suffering, you investigate its cause. When you see non-self, you stop defending what was never there. These are the gateways to freedom, not ideas to believe, but truths to recognize in direct experience. They are called marks because they mark everything. Nothing escapes them. And seeing them everywhere is seeing reality clearly. Everything that arises will cease. Birth and death are not special events. They are happening constantly. Every moment, something arises. Every moment, something ceases. Thoughts arise and cease. Sensations arise and cease. Emotions arise and cease. Even the sense of self arises and ceases moment by moment. When you pay close enough attention, you see that nothing lasts even for a second. Everything is in constant flux. This is not depressing. It is liberating. Nothing is stuck. Nothing is permanent. Even the most difficult experience is already dissolving. Even the tightest knot is already loosening. You do not have to force change. Change is already happening. Your job is simply to align with it, to flow with it, to stop resisting the natural movement of arising and ceasing. When you do, there is tremendous ease. Life becomes like a river. You are not pushing the water. You are flowing with it. Attachment to views causes suffering. The Buddha taught that even attachment to right views causes suffering. You can be correct about something and still suffer from clinging to being correct. Views, opinions, beliefs, positions. All of these are mental constructions. When you identify with them, you must defend them. And that defense creates conflict, rigidity, separation. Even attachment to Buddhist views is a problem. The freedom is in holding views lightly. You can have perspectives without being owned by them. You can think things are true without needing everyone to agree. You can change your mind when new information arrives. This does not make you wishy-washy. It makes you flexible. It means you value truth more than being right. You value learning more than knowing. When you release attachment to views, you can finally see clearly, because you are not distorting reality to fit your pre-existing beliefs. Beginner's mind is forever. Shoshin, beginner's mind, is a Zen concept that the Buddha would recognize. No matter how much you practice, approach each moment with freshness, with openness, with not knowing. The expert mind thinks it knows. The beginner's mind is curious. The expert mind has answers. The beginner's mind has questions. Which one is more likely to see something new? Forever, a beginner means forever open, forever learning, forever curious. This does not mean you do not develop skill or understanding. It means you do not let that understanding become a prison. Each moment is brand new. You have never experienced this exact moment before. So how can you already know what it contains? Beginner's mind is infinite possibility. It is the willingness to be surprised, to be wrong, to see with fresh eyes. This is the mind that is truly alive. Practice never ends. There is no graduation from being human, no certificate of completion. The path is endless, which sounds discouraging but is actually freeing. It means you can stop trying to finish. Stop trying to arrive. Stop trying to be done. You are never done. Even the most awakened beings continue to practice, not because they have to, but because practice becomes natural, like breathing. When you accept that practice is forever, you relax. You stop rushing. You stop measuring yourself against some imagined end point. You are simply here, practicing in whatever way is appropriate for this moment. Some days the practice is sitting meditation. Some days it is getting out of bed. Some days it is just breathing. All of it counts. All of it matters. You are always beginning, always continuing, and that is perfect, the gateless gate. This is a famous Zen koan. There is a gate you must pass through to enter liberation. But the gate has no gate. There is nothing blocking you except the belief that you are blocked. The barrier is that you think there is a barrier. When you stop looking for the gate, you realize you were always inside. You were never outside. There is nowhere to enter because you never left. This teaching frustrates the seeking mind. It wants steps, stages, progress toward a goal. But the deepest teaching is that there is no distance to travel. You are already home. You just forgot. Liberation is recognizing what was always true, not achieving what was absent. The gate is gateless because there never was a gate, just the belief in separation. And when that belief dissolves, you see, you were free all along. You just didn't know it. We have traveled far tonight, through suffering and its causes, through the path that leads to freedom, through daily practices and deep paradoxes. Now, it is time to return to something simple, something that needs no explanation, something your body already knows without teaching. Just breath, just being, just this moment, exactly as it is. These final reflections are not new teachings, they are reminders, invitations to rest in what has always been here, to let everything else fall away, to come home to the simplest truth. You are breathing, and that is enough. Just this breath. Breathing in, you know you are breathing in. Breathing out, you know you are breathing out. Nothing else is needed. The Buddha taught that this simple practice can lead all the way to awakening, not because breath is special, but because it is always now. You cannot breathe in the past. You cannot breathe in the future. Breath happens only in this moment. And when attention rests with breath, you rest in now, in presence, in being. No effort required, just noticing. The coolness of air entering, the warmth of air leaving, the slight pause between, the gentle rising and falling. Your body breathes itself. You do not have to control it. You can simply observe it, like watching waves at the shore, coming and going. Natural, effortless, complete in itself. This breath is enough. This moment is enough. Just this, nothing more. Be here now. Ram Dass spoke these words, but the Buddha taught the same truth. This moment is the only reality. Past is memory. Future is imagination. Only now is actual. Only now can be experienced. Only now can be lived. All the teachings, all the practices, all the insights, they all point here, to this moment. Simple, present, requiring nothing from you except your presence. You do not have to be anywhere else. You do not have to become anyone else. Here and now is enough. It always was. Let go. Release all holding. Everything you have been carrying, you can set down now. The day's worries, tomorrow's plans, old hurts, future fears, the need to understand, the need to be someone. All of it can rest. You do not have to hold your life together through willpower. You can trust. Trust that you will wake tomorrow. Trust that breath will continue. Trust that life knows how to be life. You can fall into this moment like falling into a soft bed, safe, supported, held by something larger than your small efforts. You are held. The web of existence supports you. You are not floating alone in empty space. You are embedded in reality itself. The earth beneath you, the air around you, the countless causes and conditions that brought you to this moment. You are held by the universe itself. You were never separate enough to fall. You were never alone enough to be lost. You belong here. You have always belonged. The entire cosmos has conspired to bring you to this breath. You are held. Rest in that knowing. Nothing to do. You do not have to achieve anything. You do not have to become anything. You do not have to improve anything. Right now, there is nothing required of you. Just being is enough. Just existing. Just breathing. The Buddha taught that you are already Buddha, already awake, already free. You just have not noticed yet. But even the not noticing is okay. Even the forgetting is part of the process. Nothing to do, nowhere to go, no one to become. Just this, just here, just breath. Already complete. All is well. Despite everything, despite struggle, despite pain, despite uncertainty. At the deepest level, all is well. This is not denial. It is a recognition that beneath all the surface turbulence, there is a fundamental okayness. The sun still rises, breath still flows, life continues. You are here, alive, aware. That basic fact is a kind of miracle. Whatever problems you carry, they rest on top of this underlying rightness. All is well. Not perfect, not easy. But at the core, fundamentally, mysteriously, all is well. You can rest in that. The Buddha is resting too. Even awakening rests. Even enlightenment sleeps. You do not have to stay vigilant. You do not have to remain alert. You have permission to let go completely, to drift into sleep without guilt or resistance. The practice continues even in dreams, even in unconsciousness. You do not stop being Buddha when you sleep. You do not lose your progress. You simply rest. And rest is sacred. It is necessary. It is part of the path. The Buddha himself slept. He rested. He honored the body's need for restoration. You can too. Tomorrow will come. The future takes care of itself. You do not have to think about it now. You do not have to plan it. You do not have to worry about it. Tomorrow will arrive on its own, as it always has. Morning will come. The sun will rise. Life will continue. None of it requires your effort in this moment. Right now, the only thing asked of you is rest. Everything else can wait. Tomorrow has its own time. Tonight is for sleep, for release, for letting the day finally end. These teachings dissolve. You do not need to remember anything you heard tonight. You do not need to hold on to any of it. The teachings have done their work. They have walked with you for a while. They have pointed you toward peace. Now they can dissolve, like footprints in sand, washed away by waves. Nothing to carry, nothing to study, nothing to remember. The wisdom that matters has already been absorbed, deeper than thought, deeper than memory. It rests in you now, even as you let the words fade. Gate, gate, paragot. These are the final words of the Heart Sutra. Gone, gone, gone beyond, gone altogether beyond, into sleep, into peace, into the vast emptiness that holds everything. You are crossing from waking to sleeping, from thought to no thought, from doing to being, gone beyond, not into nothing, but into the spaciousness that contains all things. Let these words carry you. Gate, gate, gone, gone, beyond, completely beyond, into rest, into release, into the ultimate letting go that is sleep. We have traveled far tonight, through suffering and its causes, through the path that leads to freedom, through daily practices and deep paradoxes. Now, it is time to return to something simple, something that needs no explanation, something your body already knows without teaching. Just breath, just being, just this moment, exactly as it is. These final reflections are not new teachings. They are reminders, invitations to rest in what has always been here, to let everything else fall away, to come home to the simplest truth. You are breathing, and that is enough. Just this breath. Breathing in, you know you are breathing in. Breathing out, you know you are breathing out. Nothing else is needed. The Buddha taught that this simple practice can lead all the way to awakening, not because breath is special, but because it is always now. You cannot breathe in the past. You cannot breathe in the future. Breath happens only in this moment. And when attention rests with breath, you rest in now, in presence, in being, no effort required, just noticing. The coolness of air entering, the warmth of air leaving, the slight pause between, the gentle rising and falling. Your body breathes itself. You do not have to control it. You can simply observe it, like watching waves at the shore, coming and going, natural, effortless, complete in itself. This breath is enough. This moment is enough. Just this, nothing more. Be here now. Ram Dass spoke these words, but the Buddha taught the same truth. This moment is the only reality. Past is memory. Future is imagination. Only now is actual. Only now can be experienced. Only now can be lived. All the teachings, all the practices, all the insights, they all point here, to this moment, simple, present, requiring nothing from you except your presence. You do not have to be anywhere else. You do not have to become anyone else. Here and now is enough. It always was. Let go. Release all holding. Everything you have been carrying, you can set down now. The day's worries, tomorrow's plans, old hurts, future fears, the need to understand, the need to be someone, all of it can rest. You do not have to hold your life together through willpower. You can trust. Trust that you will wake tomorrow. Trust that breath will continue. Trust that life knows how to be life. You can fall into this moment like falling into a soft bed, safe, supported, held by something larger than your small efforts. You are held. The web of existence supports you. You are not floating alone in empty space. You are embedded in reality itself. The earth beneath you, the air around you, the countless causes and conditions that brought you to this moment, You are held by the universe itself. You were never separate enough to fall. You were never alone enough to be lost. You belong here. You have always belonged. The entire cosmos has conspired to bring you to this breath. You are held. Rest in that knowing. Nothing to do. You do not have to achieve anything. You do not have to become anything. You do not have to improve anything. Right now, there is nothing required of you. Just being is enough. Just existing. Just breathing. The Buddha taught that you are already Buddha, already awake, already free. You just have not noticed yet. But even the not noticing is okay. Even the forgetting is part of the process. Nothing to do, nowhere to go, no one to become. Just this. Just here, just breath. Already complete. All is well. Despite everything. Despite struggle. Despite pain. Despite uncertainty. At the deepest level, all is well. This is not denial. It is a recognition that beneath all the surface turbulence, there is a fundamental okayness. The sun still rises. Breath still flows. Life continues. You are here, alive, aware. That basic fact is a kind of miracle. Whatever problems you carry, they rest on top of this underlying rightness. All is well. Not perfect, not easy, but at the core, fundamentally, mysteriously, all is well. You can rest in that. The Buddha is resting too. Even awakening rests. Even enlightenment sleeps. You do not have to stay vigilant. You do not have to remain alert. You have permission to let go completely, to drift into sleep without guilt or resistance. The practice continues even in dreams, even in unconsciousness. You do not stop being Buddha when you sleep. You do not lose your progress. You simply rest. And rest is sacred. It is necessary. It is part of the path. The Buddha himself slept. He rested. He honored the body's need for restoration. You can too. Tomorrow will come. The future takes care of itself. You do not have to think about it now. You do not have to plan it. You do not have to worry about it. Tomorrow will arrive on its own, as it always has. Morning will come. The sun will rise. Life will continue. None of it requires your effort in this moment. Right now, the only thing asked of you is rest. Everything else can wait. Tomorrow has its own time. Tonight is for sleep, for release, for letting the day finally end. These teachings dissolve. You do not need to remember anything you heard tonight. You do not need to hold on to any of it. The teachings have done their work. They have walked with you for a while. They have pointed you toward peace. Now they can dissolve, like footprints in sand washed away by waves. Nothing to carry, nothing to study, nothing to remember. The wisdom that matters has already been absorbed. Deeper than thought, deeper than memory. It rests in you now, even as you let the words fade. Gate, gate, paragat. These are the final words of the Heart Sutra. Gone, gone, gone beyond. Gone altogether beyond, into sleep, into peace, into the vast emptiness that holds everything. You are crossing from waking to sleeping, from thought to no thought, from doing to being, gone beyond, not into nothing, but into the spaciousness that contains all things. Let these words carry you. Gate, gate, gone, gone, beyond, completely beyond, into rest, into release, into the ultimate letting go that is sleep. Closing section. As we come to the end of this gentle journey, you might feel the teachings settling into your awareness like snow falling softly on still water. We have walked through the Buddha's insights, ancient observations about suffering, liberation, and the path between them. These truths were not created, they were discovered. They are as natural as gravity, as inevitable as impermanence, as constant as change itself. The Buddha did not ask for belief. He asked for investigation. Test these teachings in your own life. See if they are true. See if they bring freedom. If they do, use them. If they do not, release them. This is not religion demanding faith. This is wisdom offering tools. You are free to use them or not. But they are here, tested across millennia, proven in countless lives. They work, not because they are Buddhist, but because they are true. What you heard tonight is not meant to be memorized. It is meant to be felt, to settle, to seep in slowly the way rain soaks into earth. Some teachings will stay with you, others will fade. Trust that what you need has already found you. The words themselves do not matter. What matters is the shift they might create, the small opening toward freedom, the gentle recognition that suffering can end, that peace is possible, that you are already, in some deep sense, free. The path we explored tonight is not a burden. It is not another thing to add to your list. It is a companion, a friend who walks beside you, reminding you to see clearly, to hold lightly, to be kind. You can return to these teachings any time. They are patient. They do not judge your pace. They simply wait, ready to guide when you are ready to listen, and when you do not need them anymore, they release you completely. That is the nature of skillful means. They free you, then they free themselves. If something here brought you even a moment of peace, you are always welcome to return. A like or subscribe helps others find this same rest, one weary soul at a time, seeking relief from the weight of existence. And if you happen to still be awake, there is another video waiting, ready to carry you further into the night. But there is no pressure, no expectation, just an open invitation to rest. Let all of this dissolve now. The teachings, the words, the concepts. Everything we touch tonight can fade like morning mist in sun. You do not need to carry any of it. What was meant to reach you has already reached you. What was meant to change has already begun changing. Now, there is only this breath, this moment, this gentle drift toward sleep. Nothing to hold, nothing to remember, nothing to become. Your body is completely relaxed now, heavy, warm, supported entirely by what holds you. There is no tension left to release. Your mind is quiet. Thoughts have slowed to a whisper. Words are fading into silence. Even the voice you are hearing grows distant, like a memory of sound rather than sound itself. Everything is soft. Everything is loose. Everything is dissolving into the gentle dark. You have permission to let go completely, to stop listening, to drift wherever sleep takes you. There is nowhere you need to be, nothing you need to hold on to. Safe to release awareness. Safe to sink into unconsciousness. Safe to sleep deeply and dreamlessly, or to dream lightly and beautifully, whichever comes. The Buddha is with you. The teachings are with you, and they ask nothing of you now except rest. May all beings be happy. May all beings be peaceful. May all beings be free from suffering. Sleep well, and good night.